Galton and Alan Simpson were two men whose partnership, their names are often spoken together, almost as if they were one creative soul shared between two bodies. But behind that unity were two very different lives, two different childhoods, and one extraordinary friendship that began in the most unlikely of places. Raymond Percy Galton was born in 1926 in Paddington, London. Alan Francis Simpson arrived a year earlier in 1925. In Brixton, both grew up in working-class families, surrounded by the everyday humour, frustrations, and small dramas that would later become the lifeblood of their writing. But neither of them could have imagined that their futures would be forged not in a theatre, not in a studio, but in a tuberculosis sanatorium. In the late 1940s, both young men were struck down by TB, a disease that, at the time, carried fear, stigma, and long periods of isolation. Ray was admitted to the Milford Sanatorium in Surrey. Alan arrived not long after. They were teenagers facing an illness that could easily have taken their lives. But instead, it gave them something extraordinary. It gave them each other. Confined to long months of recovery, they found solace in conversation, in shared humour, and in the discovery that they both loved comedy. They devoured radio shows, analysed jokes, and began writing their own sketches simply to pass the time. What started as a distraction became a passion, and what began as a friendship became a partnership that would change British entertainment forever. When they were discharged, they continued writing together, sending sketches to the BBC with the optimism of youth and the determination of two men who had already stared down mortality. Their first major break came when they were hired to write for the hugely popular radio comedian Derek Roy. But their true turning point arrived when they began writing for a rising star named Tony Hancock. Hancock's half hour became a phenomenon. It was sharp, character-driven, and unlike anything else on radio, Galton and Simpson didn't just write jokes. They wrote people. They wrote loneliness, frustration, pride, and the quiet tragedies of everyday life. They understood that comedy was not just about laughter. It was about truth, and Hancock trusted them completely. Together, they created some of the most iconic moments in British comedy history: the Blood Donor, the Radio Ham, the Poetry Society. These were not just sketches. They were miniature plays, built on character, timing, and emotional depth. They captured the absurdity of ordinary life with a precision that felt almost poetic. But the partnership with Hancock was not without strain. As his fame grew, so did his insecurities. The relationship between star and writers became increasingly difficult, and eventually, painfully, they parted ways. For many writers, that might have been the end of a golden era. For Galton and Simpson, it was the beginning of another. In 1962, they created Steptoe and Son. It was a sitcom, yes, but it was also a study of family, class, ambition, and the ties that bind us even when we long to escape. Harold and Albert Steptoe were not glamorous characters. They were rag-and-bone men living in a cluttered yard, trapped in a cycle of dependency and resentment. But through Galton and Simpson's writing, they became Shakespearean in their depth. The show was groundbreaking. It blended comedy with pathos in a way British television had never seen. It dared to be bleak, honest, and emotionally raw, and audiences loved it. Steptoe and Son became one of the most influential sitcoms in British history, inspiring adaptations around the world, including the American series Sanford and Son. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, Galton and Simpson continued to write for some of the biggest names in entertainment: Frankie Howerd, Les Dawson, Leonard Rossiter. They became the gold standard of British comedy writing, admired not just for their humour, but for their humanity. Their partnership endured for decades, built on mutual respect, shared experience, and a deep understanding of each other's strengths. They were not flashy celebrities. They did not seek the spotlight. They preferred to let their work speak for them. And it did, loudly and clearly, across generations. Alan Simpson retired from writing in the late 1970s, choosing to step away from the industry while still at the top of his game. Ray Galton continued working, collaborating with others, but always acknowledging that the magic he shared with Alan was something unique, something that could never be replicated. Alan Simpson passed away in 2017 at the age of 87. Ray Galton followed a year later in 2018, aged 88. Their deaths marked the end of an era, but their legacy remains woven into the fabric of British culture. They taught us that comedy can be tender, that laughter can sit side by side with sadness, that the most ordinary lives can be the most extraordinary when seen through the right eyes. And they showed that friendship, true, enduring friendship, can survive illness, hardship, fame, and time. Ray Galton and Alan Simpson were more than writers. They were chroniclers of the human condition. They were craftsmen of character. They were pioneers who shaped the way Britain laughs and the way Britain feels. Their work lives on not just in recordings, but in the countless writers, performers, and audiences they inspired. And in the quiet truth at the heart of all their stories, that humour is one of the ways we survive, connect and understand each other. Ray and Alan began their journey in a sanatorium, two young men facing uncertainty. They ended it as legends, having given the world decades of laughter, honesty, and unforgettable characters. Their partnership was a gift to British comedy, and their legacy will continue to echo for generations. Here is an interview with Ray Galton and Alan Simpson in later life, reflecting on their remarkable and amazing careers.
A telephone? No, that was the that's Harry Kane, the songwriter.
The songwriter,
yeah,
Sammy
Kane. Yeah, I knew it was somebody like that. No, it wasn't a telephone. Telephones weren't invented then. Inspired us to write boredom in the sanatorium. We were sitting there year in, year out, and fed up with making handbags and wallets, and Alan was embroidering, and we thought we'd write some comedy shows for the patient's own internal radio network. That's how we started.
And that's where you both met as well, isn't it?
Indeed, yes, that's exactly. I was in 1948 down in the Surrey County Sanatorium at Milford, and we undertook to write a series of 6 15-minute sort of pastiches on sanatorium life, and we learnt the fact that it's not that easy. We dried up after 4, so the series was curtailed by 2. But we got our first fan letter from one of the patients just before he died. He said, how much he enjoyed it. So we thought, that's good. So we didn't write anything more for a year. And when we came out of the sanatorium, we wrote some sketches for a local concert party that I used to be a member of, and that's how we started. And then, having got back together again, we wrote a sketch, sent it into the BBC to Gail Pedrick, and he liked it and invited us to go and meet him. So it was wonderful. I mean, that was it.
When did you find that you two were compatible at writing?
During this time, we were only 18, and we were both great fans of the comedy shows that were out at the time, and particularly American shows we used to listen to a lot. And we got chatting and found that we had we were very sympathetic towards each other's ideas. We laughed at the same things.
We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know how to go about it, but and it took a long time to write anything. But
we learned as we went.
Yeah, we learned as we went along.
How many times did you approach the Beeb with scripts, or was it you?
No,
just the once. And they said that Gail Pedrick was a lovely man. Anyway, he was a script editor, and we sent it to him because we didn't know of his existence, but we wrote to Frank Muir and Dennis Norton, and it was their suggestion, probably fobbing us off, so we wouldn't get in their hair. But nevertheless, it was good advice, and we wrote to this Gail Pedrick, and his letter was saying something like, "We were highly amused by your sketch, but don't read more than is on the surface of the letter. We would like to meet you." So we were cock a hoop over that, and probably we would have, if nothing more had happened, we probably would have kept that letter and memory of what could have happened.
Still got it somewhere.
No.
But and also what he did, you see, was being in his position as script editor, he sent the script around to various producers, and there was a producer called Roy Spear who was doing a show for Derek Roy, and the script was on his desk, and Derek Roy apparently picked it up and just sort of skimmed through it and said, "Who wrote this? This is instant, tell them to get in touch with me." But in actual fact, they got in touch with. I was at work and one day and had a phone call from Derek Roy's secretary, Johnny Vivian, who subsequently was played lots of parts in the Hancock show.
I was going to say was big in the Hancock show, but he was vertically challenged.
About 4 foot, I think about 4'6", I think John was, Australian. Anyway, he phoned up and arranged for Ray and I to go to meet Derek Roy at his flat in Bryanston Street, round the back of Oxford Street there. And I always remember going up, because Ray and I are both 6'4", and knocking on the door and expecting it to be opened by somebody, around about our size. And we said, "Good evening," and then looked down, and there was Johnny Vivian. And he had this very, very languid sort of, even though he was Australian, a sort of a posh English voice. And we said, "Well, Ray Galton and Alan Simpson." He said, "Oh yes, you're the two chaps who are trying to fit in." So I was, "Oh Christ."
Fit in what? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, that's how it all started, and we started writing jokes for Derek. And we used to go up to, when we finished writing a page or two, we'd go up to his office, and Johnny Vivian would show us in. Derek would look at what we'd written, tick them, cross them out, tick them, add them all up. £5 a joke, which is for those young people is 25 pence. And Johnny Vivian used to take us into the study, get the petty cash box out, and count out if we sold him 7 jokes, 7 fives, 35 bob. And on the train home, I'd give Ray 17 and 6. Thus our great careers formed.
Excellent. Once you as I say, you got established, what was the first assignment that the Bee put you on, really? Was it wasn't Hancock, was it?
No, it was Derek Roy. It was a show called through this story I just told you about, writing with Derek, writing jokes for Derek. He at the time was doing a very big weekly show on BBC called Happy Go Lucky.
It's a radio we're talking about.
And the most badly titled show ever. It was a disaster. And there was no happiness about it and no luck about it. But because we were newcomers and we were there, and we were nothing really to do with the show, but they sat with the existing writers, and they brought a new director in, Dennis Main Wilson, who subsequently did the Goon Show and all the Hancock's half hours on radio, or most of the beginning anyway. And he offered us, said, "Right, you two, can you write the show? The last 3 episodes of Happy Go Lucky." And this was a prime 9 o'clock Sunday evening show. And we thought, well, no, of course we can't. But we said yes. And fortunately, we were lucky. It was a fortnightly show. It was only, so we didn't have to do one a week. And we used to work at my mother's house. And Ray used to come over early in the morning on the bus. And we work all day long into the early hours of the morning. I mean, literally, we were working 20 hours a day. Day after day after day, and it was really hard work, because we didn't know how to do it. It was all new to us, but we gradually did it. And the lucky thing for us, really, we didn't realise at the time, but looking back, was it was such a disastrous show that whatever we did couldn't be any worse than what had gone before, and in actual fact was marginally better. And so we got a little bit of a reputation. These are the two boys, 2 young boys, used them.
And another strange thing about the show was that Hancock was on the show. And when we wrote this, these last 3 shows, Hancock's bit was the bit that we didn't write because it was it was a Scoutmaster in sketch, and it was old Australian material. And so Hancock and Peter Butterworth and Bill Kerr and Graham Stark. That was the Beaver Patrol, and he was the Scoutmaster, and that was the bit we didn't write. But Hancock passed us one day, and he said to us, we were sitting in the stalls of the theatre, and he said, "Did you write that?" And we said, "Yeah." He said, "Very funny," and moved on. And about 6 months later, we were asked again by the BBC to take over a show that was a very big show, well established, called Calling All Forces, and it was written by Monkhouse and Goodwin. And they were either going to go on holiday because they'd been writing 80 shows non-stop. And Jakes Brown, the producer, asked us whether we could write it, and we thought, there again, no, we can't. But we hadn't been in the forces, but you know, we didn't dare say no. So we did that, and Hancock was on that show, and he was sharing at the time, billing with Charlie Chester. Charlie Chester had top billing, Tony had the second billing. And as soon as that show finished, 6 weeks later, they dropped Charlie Chester and put Tony Hancock in the lead, and it was called Forces All-Star Bill.
Right, yeah.
Re-entitled it.
Yeah.
And it was our show again, all with guests. You know, you had a guest actor, guest singer, guest instrumentalist, and that's really when we started writing for Tony.
And also that's when we really started learning, that's when we really, during that period, really learned our trade. Because we were writing for every comic in the business, was a guest comic each week, all different styles. Jimmy Edwards, Bernard Braden, Terry Thomas, all different styles, and we were writing for all of them. That's how we learnt. That's how we were paid. We were very lucky, really, in as much as we were being paid by the BBC to learn our trade. It was like an apprenticeship, but we were being paid.
You were extremely young, really.
Very young. We were 21, 22 years old. Yeah.
What about the other writers? Were they considerably older, or?
Well, everybody. It's funnily enough, everybody was young in those days because most of the people had just come out of the forces, and we were very young. But Monkhouse and Goodwin were only a year older than us. Muir and Norton were about 6 or 7 years older than us. Hancock was about 7 years older than us.
Spike Milligan,
Eric Sykes, all of 5 to 10 years older than us. All just young men just coming out of the army. And
we were called the boys. We were called the boys, and we
still are.
It shows you how old people are.
God, yeah, 50
still
years,
in the BBC, yeah.
Nearly 50, 45 years later. But the old people that we used to work with were the ones, all the pre-war people that were still around who hadn't been in the army.
Right.
Few older comedians, Arthur Askey, people like that. Richard Murdoch. Jimmy James, I remember we worked with once, and they were the older school. But most of the people at that time were young people who just come out of the army. And Ray and I didn't go in the army because of the sanatorium. But
should I kill that dog? Or
well, you might want to stroke him, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
beginnings.
Sounds right. Okay, so you met Tony. You're about to work with him. How did that come about, Hancock's half hour?
Well, we did this Calling All Forces All-Star Bill, All-Star Bill thing for about 2 years. So we did quite a lot of shows over 2 years, and we'd all thought it'd be a nice idea to do a half-hour situation. Well, we didn't call them sitcoms in those days. So just a half-hour comedy show with a storyline each week, as they used to do a lot in America. And the only ones over here were Life of the Lions and Life of Bliss and PC 49 and things like that. But they weren't sort of out and out, feature starring comedians as such.
but also what we wanted to do with this projected show was have a storyline running all the way through it, with no breakups, no guests, no singers, nothing. Don't have that storyline going from A to Z.
Was this quite unique at the time?
Yes, I think there's only probably Life of the Lions who did that.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, what we wanted to do was have no funny voices. Didn't work out because we got Kenneth Williams. No funny voices and no no jokes as such. We thought, we'll try and get all the laughs to come out of the situation or out the character. That's what that was the aim of it.
That was the aim of it, absolutely. Yeah.
And as I say, but
it gradually evolved. We eventually got to what we were aiming for in the first place. But all these things take time and they evolve. And there again, you see, in those days you were given the time. For instance, Take It From Here, which was a big show at the time. After 6 shows, that was a big flop. But they persevered with it, and then after another year, it was the biggest thing on radio. This is back in the late 40s, and similar with the Hancock show. I mean, it didn't set the world alight when it first started in 1954, but they persevered. We did, I think it was we used to do 20 shows in a series. I think it was 14 in the first series. And after that, we used to do 20 shows in a series, and it gradually evolved. But you've got to be given time, especially for a character like the Hancock character. It doesn't evolve overnight. Totally, if you listen to those, if they're in existence, the original 54-year-old, the 1954 shows, Hancock's performance is totally different to what it was at the end. It was more like he was doing Educating Archie. He had this sort of school voice he put on. Hello. Oh my word, swipe me. And gradually he lost that, and as the writing became more realistic, and we developed the character of Anthony St. John Hancock, his performance changed, and it's quite remarkably so. Bill Kerr's character completely changed.
Well, that's because we didn't know what to do in, really.
That's right. He started off as a wisecracker, didn't he? Sort of American, hello there, wow, what are you, And gradually we turned him into a sort of a Australian Stan Laurel. I don't want to worry you, but I'm hello Tab, and it was sort of thickhead, completely different. To the only consistent thing was Sid.
I was going to say, Sid didn't really want to do the show, did he? Because he didn't feel he was a.
No, it wasn't a radio performer. He was very, very, very worried about it.
Did you have anyone to replace him, or was he
your
first choice?
We hadn't.
No, he was our first choice because we didn't even know his name really. We said, they said, who do you want? We said, there's a guy playing a burglar in the Lavender Hill Mob.
That's right.
And they said, well, who is it? We said, we don't know. So, well, you better find out. And so we tracked the film down to somewhere in Kilburn or somewhere like that.
Putney, wasn't it? Putney High Street, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But
and we sat through the film again just to see the credits, and then it said, burglar Sidney James. That's it. So we
phoned Dennis Wilson the next morning. Sidney James, and
that's who we want.
And it turned out I think Tony had worked with him in a film called Orders Are Orders briefly, so they sort of knew each other. Yeah, briefly. I mean, they were acquaintances. And that's how the Hancock thing started. Yeah.
How did it evolve to get onto TV? Was
there again, when we started with Hancock's Half Hour, TV was a very minimal.
Yeah.
And nobody did TV because they couldn't afford to. They used to during the week they'd be on the music halls, all the comedians, earning where their real money came from, and then the lucky ones like the Hancocks and the Terry Thomases and the Dick Bentleys and Jimmy Edwards had a big radio show, which they did on Sundays. So they were working 7 days a week. Couldn't afford to do television because that means they wouldn't be able to do their musical tours.
But for the obvious reasons as well. I mean, not only for rehearsal, they had to learn the script.
Yeah,
whereas
right.
on for radio, nothing. You see, they just they turn up in the afternoon
and
read it. Yeah, we had to do 2 read-throughs and let the audience in.
From our point of view, I mean, it's just difficult. It took just as long to write a radio show as a television show. But eventually, as the years went by, television became bigger and bigger, and the music started dying out. And so, consequently, the main career was on television. And around about this time, it was around about 1956. Well, it was 56 when Hancock decided that he'd like to have a crack at television.
Did you think he was good?
Oh, it was. Everybody agreed it was a natural thing for him to do, because Hancock was one of those comedians who looked like he sounded. So when he went on television, everybody accepted that he was the same bloke. Some of them, they come on television and they look and say, "That's not him. He doesn't look anything like that." Because everybody had their own idea of what these people looked like. But Hancock looked like he sounded.
By that time, was Tony inputting anything into the writing, or
No, he never did.
So you really just played to.
Tony did not. Deliberately didn't contribute any Ideas, any jokes, any
variations of a line.
He didn't ring up and say, "Oh, I've got an idea. What if this week he joins the police force or becomes a doctor or something?" Didn't anything like.
You wish he had done that a little bit.
Not at all, because his attitude, quite rightly, is you're the writers underperforming. You do it. You write it, and I'll do it. If he didn't like it, he would say so. If he said, I'm not keen on, can you redo the ending? Seems a bit, or whatever, We, mostly with bad grace, would say, because he was the governor, really. We were writing for him, in those days it wasn't like Steptoe, where it's our creation and the actors sort of learned the lines. We were writing for Tony. But he didn't contribute anything, as I say, and deliberately. The only time he contributed anything at all, in all the 9 years we worked for him, was the first film, The Rebel, and we got together for about a week and tossed around the ideas, and we sort of came up with the plot of The Rebel between the three of us, and he insisted on a credit as well.
Did you enjoy doing the film rather than the sort of half-hour sitcom?
Yeah, I enjoyed making the film. Big.
It's a lavish set. I mean, you went to a few nice places. Oh, it looked it anyway.
Well, yeah, went to Paris. I went to Monte Carlo. No, it was. It's good working on a film because it was. There seemed to be. Well, it was far more glamorous, and you're on a set, just like you see on the backstage
on the
films. Yeah, exactly, and far more glamorous, and you were cosseted and looked after. People would run and get you whatever you wanted, and you had hotels, and it was wonderful. Yeah, great. Films are great. I'm all for them.
Totally different, from a writing point of view. Totally different.
I was going to say, what was?
Well, it's the construction is the biggest difference. It's an art in itself, constructing a film, whereas a half-hour television series, a show, in a way, it just happens. You don't really, at least with our experience, we didn't really construct it so much. It didn't matter if you had one long scene and a little. But films have to sort of reach crescendos and whatnot. It's a different concept. An hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes is totally different to half an hour. Yeah.
What was your favourite show that you did for Hancock, writing-wise?
I don't know, it's very objective.
I mean, everyone has their own favourites.
Yeah.
I think probably. I don't know. I suppose the last series was the most satisfying. I should think.
Yeah.
Think so. I wouldn't swear to it, but I think so.
I mean, obviously,
and that, strangely enough, was without Sid James. And as there was only one series without Sid, people tend to say, "Well, he wasn't as good without Sid, was he?" And forgetting that all the ones they remember, or nearly all the ones I remember, were those last 7 or last 6 without Sid. And I'm not denigrating Sid, because there were loads of lovely ones with Sid.
I mean, The Missing Page and the 12 Angry Men, but the ones with Sid, The Two Murderers,
Lord Byron.
They were all great fun to do and good. And Tony and Sid worked very well together. I mean, Sid was a great great foil for Tony. I mean, he helped into a lot of difficult stages of a thing. Because Tony, used to have a hell of a lot to learn, and Sid had been doing films. He knew the cameras, knew the angles, and he helped Tony a lot.
What was Tony like just before? Because a lot of them were live.
Oh, totally nervous. He was always beforehand. I mean, he always used to, before he went on, was like a caged lion, and he was retching, and he's dry, and coughing and retching, and you think, "God Almighty, he's not going to live to get on," And then he'd start, and he'd be fine. And then when it was over and it had been cleared, then that's when he relaxed. That's when he let it all.
And have a drink.
Come out and have a drink.
Yeah, but he never drank beforehand.
His wife used to bring a cocktail cabinet along, but he'd never have a drink when he was on. Never go on with having drunk. Never drink at all during the day. Only after the show finished. But yes, he was full of tension before he went on. But I mean, he wasn't alone in that. I mean, lots of them. Loads of.
I can't imagine anybody not. I mean, God Almighty, I don't know how to.
He's not alone. I mean, I suppose one gets the impression with actors that they go on and do it, but it's making people laugh is a different. Because you get immediate. If they don't, it's immediate criticism, isn't it? If you go on and you do a joke, nobody laughs. You're not doing well. Whereas if you're an actor, you don't know. Nobody says rubbish, get off. You know, you don't know if you're doing a drama.
Yeah.
You don't know how it's going until you read the reviews. If you're doing a comedy and they don't laugh, you know you're dead.
I remember talking to Peter Cushing, well, obviously years ago because he died, but he used to do the acting bit, and they used to have, and it would, because there was no videotape then, it would be live transmission on the Saturday, and it would get reviewed on the Sunday, so it was dreadful. And they'd have to repeat the show on the Wednesday, knowing that people hated it. Again, it was really bizarre, you know, knowing that people did like the thing you're doing. But when Tony went sort of walkabouts for a little while, Harry Seacombe stepped in. Did you change your style of writing?
Not at all.
I don't think we changed. I
haven't
don't
seen any of Harry Seacombe, so
I think we must have rewritten the first page to take into account why it was Harry and not Hancock.
Hancock's half hour starring Harry Seacombe.
Yeah, so we must have explained that, but say that Harry was a friend or something, just come to see him. Well, he's not here. He's, I don't know. I can't remember. We must have done something.
Well, I must get the scripts out and have a look, just because.
But the rest of the script was the same, and I know that script 2 and 3 had all been written, and Harry just read them.
And did you think he was good at the part?
Well, I mean, he was different. He didn't have the. Didn't have the same the same character. The character was different. Harry's character was much brasher. I mean, he played it like Neddy Seagoon, really. Hello there,
I can't remember how he played it, but at the same time,
he played the only way Harry ever plays. I
know, but I mean, they were.
But he was fine.
I don't remember rewriting these shows, and there we are. So when we got this criticism of Paul Merton and and Harry Seacombe did them. So
no, we didn't rewrite
without any bother at all.
And in fact, the word must have got round to Tony because nobody knew where he was. He just disappeared. Because the word must have got round to him, because he certainly came back. He was back on. Right, here we are. Where do we? So then we wrote the number 4. We wrote specially for Tony and Harry Seacombe. The idea was just a very simple idea that Harry Seacombe had been standing in for him, and they think it would be a good idea if you went down to Wales and thanked him personally. And that was the script was the story of how they went down to Wales looking for Harry to thank him for standing in for him on his first 3 shows.
But the amazing thing about the BBC is that it didn't cross their minds to cancel the show.
Not at all.
When the show was scheduled, and Hancock had, without saying a word to anyone, had buggered off to France, and nobody knew where, or there was no communication with him or from him. And so the BBC said, right, okay, we would get someone else. And Harry Seacombe was approached. I mean, if Hancock hadn't have come back, he would have done the whole series. Maybe there wouldn't have been any more Hancock's half hours. It could have been the Harry Seacombe half hour.
It's also bearing in mind it was only the second series sort of thing, so it wasn't as established as it subsequently became.
But sort of August 1959 brought a change, really, didn't it? When Tony didn't want to work with Sid anymore. You were at the meeting. What was that like?
Well, it wasn't the meetings as such as I remember. We just it was once again a natural progression. We decided that. Tony always felt that it was becoming a double act, which he had he didn't want.
Sure.
Wasn't James and Hancock, like Laurel and Hardy and Morecambe and Wise. And people should always bear in mind that Sid had a career of his own going outside in the cinema. Sid was making 10 films a year. I mean, he was a big character actor. He wasn't a star. He wasn't a lead player, but he was a big character actor. He never stopped working. And Tony's sole engagements in those days were in Hancock's half hour.
The interesting thing was Private Eye. They did a whole page on a cartoon of Tony dropping everybody, right to the end, and then us, and then him bowing down, worshipping a statue of himself, which. As I say, as Alan was saying, this wasn't the way, and it didn't happen this way. But that seemed to be the public view of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, Spike always sums up the public thing. He said first of all he got rid of Bill Kerr, he got rid of Hattie Jakes, he got rid of Sid James, he got rid of Galton and Simpson, and then finally he got rid of himself. You know, but it's glib. I mean, that's a pithy way of putting it, and it's not altogether true. I mean, not all. You know, it is true that we got rid of Bill. I mean, we got rid of Bill, Hattie, and Ken from the television when we went from radio to television. But that was our decision, because we, rightly or wrongly, felt that we had too many characters in the radio show to transfer what we wanted to do on the half hour on television. Whereas Sid, Tony and Sid, that was fine, and everybody else would be cast. All other parts would be cast week to week as we needed them. And then, of course, as always happens in these cases, you build up a repertory company. John Le Mesurier, Mario Fabrizzi, Johnny Vivian, Arthur Mallard, John Vere, and they're in virtually every other one. But that's the way it goes. They took the place of Bill, Hattie, and Ken Williams. And then finally, the Sid thing was, as I was saying, he didn't want to be a double act. And it worked without Sid.
But Sid was devastated, because
Sid was very upset, and Ray and I, in order to sort of ease it a bit, we agreed to write a series for Sid, starring Sid, called Citizen James, which we did the first series, and then Sid carried on and did another couple. And Sid always used to say in those days, I don't want to be a star.
he was much content. He said he called himself a second Bernardi. He said, I want to be the second Bernardi. So I've got that way. You're not responsible for the show.
And it was after he split with Hancock that he did become a star. He did the Citizen James, then the family series he did with what's the name, the singer, the band singer. I forget her name now. Not Nearest and Dearest. That was
Bless This House.
That was it. And he did that for years, didn't he? Yeah.
And of course the Carry On films.
And the Carry Ons. I mean, he was doing those at the same time as just about started, I think, the Carry Ons when we finished in 1960, I think it was. Yeah.
Moving on from Tony a little bit, after you stopped writing for him, you went and did a couple of other plays, and one of them was somehow evolved into Steptoe and Son.
Yeah, we did a series called Comedy Playhouse for BBC, and Steptoe was one of those.
Again,
it wasn't called Steptoe in those days
as well, wasn't it?
Pardon?
It was like two of them, really.
Yeah,
Did you find it easier to write for two people?
Well, yes. I mean, it's always not. You've got to have someone to spark off. You know, it's got to have someone to say, and then what happened.
Did you find it easier to write Steptoe and Son rather than Hancock, or was it a totally different ball game, so to speak?
Well, the ball game started with doing the series of Comedy Playhouse. When we split with Tony, Tom Sloan, who was head of the BBC Light Entertainment, called us into his office and says, right, what are you going to do? And we said, well, we would like to write a series of Frankie Howard. And he said, oh no, you're not. And we said, why? He said, well, because the man's a disaster. And we said, but he's very funny. He said, well, we've just done a series with Frank, and it wasn't very good. And we said, well, he said, all right. And he pressed the button, and he said, Queenie, bring in all the documentation on the show. And he just showed us the appreciation figures and the viewing figures and all that. And you couldn't argue with his paperwork. And he said, what I've got in mind, he said, is you doing this series that I have in mind. It's called Comedy Playhouse, and he said you can be in it, you can direct it, you can write for whom you like, anybody you want to write for, and we change it every week. He said the only thing is going to be called Comedy Playhouse, and well, no writers have ever been given that sort of assignment before. So
just give me 10 shows.
And so that's it. And we started working really for the first time for actors. Or no, we weren't working for actors; they were working for us. And it was amazing difference for us. Steptoe was number 4, I think, in the second series, wasn't it?
No, it was in the first series. It was number 4.
Yeah, and Tom Sloan was down on the set, and he said, "You know what you got here, don't you?" And we said, "No, we did actually." He said, it's a series. He said, this is fantastic. And we said, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, after 10 years of working for one guy, we thought, this Comedy Playhouse is a release, and we didn't want to go back to writing for the same people week in, week out. And we resisted the idea of doing a series for months and months and months, and we were running out of valid objections. And we came up with one at the end. We said, look, we will do it, providing Harry Corbett and Wilfred Bramble want to do a series, thinking they would not want to do a series because they were both straight actors. And Harry Corbett was absolutely appalled when, after a week of rehearsal, he comes into the studio and he says, what are all those seats for? We said, for the audience. And he nearly walked out. He said, I didn't know we were going to have an audience. And I shall have to rethink my entire performance. We thought, first check, we bought a typewriter.
Our first check was 21 guineas.
And we bought it from
the
Peter
BBC.
Jones. Peter Jones, we bought the typewriter.
And we went down, exactly, we went and we bought a portable typewriter for £19 something out of our first check.
Of 21?
Of 21 guineas. So 21 guineas, that's £21 and 21 shillings. So there's 23... £22,
£1 shilling.
Yeah. So we had money to spare. But we wrote all these singles as well. I mean, Tony immediately endeared himself to us because we were writing when we did a single for Derek Roy, he used to pay us 8 guineas, which we thought, yeah, that's good. 8 guineas for a 5-minute spot. And then Tony said, well, we write one for him. And he said, I don't know how much you charge. And we were about to say, and he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you half what I get. So we said, all right. Then he said, I get 50 quid. So I'll give you 25 quid. Hello, that's 3 times what Derek Roy is, good. Right. So we said to Derek Roy, here, Tony Hancock is paying us 25 quid, thinking he'd give us, but he said, oh, come along now, lads, you've got to remember who gave you your first chance.
I discovered you.
I
think he put it up to 10 then, didn't he?
I think he did. I think he gave us 10 guineas, and he wonders why we stopped writing for him and vote for Tony.
Okay, let's move on a little bit to the Tony Hancock Appreciation Society. What were your thoughts when you first heard that there was going to be a appreciation society? I think about 76 when it was formed. I don't know if someone rang you up.
Yeah. I remember. We met Dan, wasn't it? Dan Pete, and we gave it our blessing. I mean, it's, absolutely. I mean, it's always nice to flattering to have fans.
Even if it is the Tony Hancock.
Even if it's the Tony Hancock. I mean, right from the start, they were always very generous to us and acknowledged our part in it all. I mean, they've always been, very complimentary to us. So good. And also, I mean, the good thing about the fan club is they keep the whole thing going. I mean, that keep on writing into the BBC and what about? Let's have some more. It's paid off because they're going to repeat some now, I believe. But no, it was very flattering. And very well organised too.
Yes. I mean, have you attended? I know you have, but have you attended any of their sort of annual get-togethers?
We went down to Bournemouth 2 or 3 years ago.
We went to the Hand and Racket, didn't we?
Yes.
The pub up in near Leicester Square, where a installed Hancock room. But I think since that happened, and we pulled the cover off the plaque, I think the breweries has pulled the manager out of it, and so he's probably no longer there. I mean, the Hand and Racket is still there, but I mean, it's probably a different theme now.
And Dan they keep in touch with our manager Tessa Labars. They keep us informed as to what's going on, and Tess, they have a duologue going on. Tess keeps them informed. Mind you, 9 times out of 10 they know more about what's going on than we do. They know when the BBC have plans to do this and that and the other, and we a week before it goes on.
And then, of course, we went up to the Breakaway fan club up to Birmingham for Yeah, for the unveiling of the Hancock statue. Yeah.
Well, Dan was there, and I read in the railway cuttings that the two sides are coming together again, which I hope that's true, because it'd be lovely.
What did you think of the statue?
Interesting. I mean, in actual fact, I suppose. I mean, it's so unusual for something like that to happen in this country, isn't it? Because usually, if they're not sitting on a horse or holding a sword, they don't exist, sort of thing. So it's interesting, very continental.
Yes. When you went to their annual get together, what was the most asked question? What people come to? What was he like? I suppose that's the obvious answer.
What was it like working with him? I mean, and all the questions you've asked today. Yeah, I mean, obviously, what was he like to work with, and and people like to have their ideas of what they think he was like confirmed. Everybody has their own views. They don't know anybody. They all know what they think what they want him to be like.
Do you think them slightly strange?
Well, not
eccentric, but
no. I mean, one.
I hope they are. I hope they are, because
I
mean, I think anybody who's got a passion for something.
In that way, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, I find Alan's passion for football quite.
There's a few million of us, though. We're not. There's a few.
No, but right, okay. But, I mean,
there's only 1,000 in the Hancock Society.
Yeah.
But I take the point. But I don't know. What I must say is, when we first heard and read the magazines, I thought that they were going to be far more eccentric than they turned out to be. I mean, when we met them all, they were all the same sort of like
very
us.
ordinary.
Oh, very ordinary.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, no, I don't find them odd at all.
But don't you find it strange that people of 11 are looking back at someone who died 30 years ago?
Oh, yes.
But knows every word of your story.
Oh, absolutely. But then Ray and I could do that with Will Hay. Before we came into the business, Ray and I would probably be able to quote Mr. Porter, for word for word. And I used to know the winner of every FA Cup semi-finalist from 1872 onwards. Couldn't do it now. But yes, but I mean, obviously, that's the train spotterish side of us, isn't it? Yeah. But no, I mean, good luck to them. Long may they survive, I think. I mean, at least we know we're going to sell 1,000 videos every time one comes on.
Oh, dear. Oh, what a commercial attitude you have.
Now the show, both Hancock and Steptoe and Son, has been transmitted around the world in different languages.
Indeed, yes.
What's your favourite interpretation of it?
Well, the most impressive one is I think without any shadow of doubt, purely because of the professionalism which is done, is the Swedish one. It's called Flexness. Flexness, Marve Flexness which is the name of the character, like Hancock. But the beauty of over there is they got so much time, which we never had. I mean,
studio time.
Studio time. No. I mean, one episode, they have a week rehearsing, and then they have a week in the studio. Now, when we did Hancock, we had 5 days rehearsing and 1 day in the studio. And also on top of that, they have 2 audiences. They have one audience for the dress run and one audience for the final run, and then they cut it all together.
Also, they have a most marvellous comedian who portrayed this part.
Yeah.
Rolf Vederslund. He looks a bit like Tony, insofar as he's about the same shape, and but even though we don't understand one word of what he's saying, though he speaks very good English, they all do out in Scandinavia, but on the show, of course, he's either speaking in Norwegian or Swedish.
He's a Norwegian actor working in Swedish.
But I suppose it helps because we know the script. But he's just a funny man as well. He is very good. You can see the show, you can say yes, and you know why it's funny, even if you can't understand it.
It sounds
very
wonderful.
Good.
It sounds so
good.
artistic. When you hear your work done in language like that, it sounds like Strindberg or Ibsen. It sounds wonderful.
But the interesting change that the director has made is to cast Sid James as he's changed it into a female part, i.e. the guy's mother. So Hancock, or the Swedish guy, lives with his mother. So it's his mother who plays all Sid's parts.
Works perfectly.
Works perfectly, yeah.
How did the Americans do? Is it Stanford and Son?
No, that was Steptoe. That was Steptoe. The Americans did Steptoe as Stanford and Son, and the Swedes do Steptoe as Albert och Herbert, which is Albert and Herbert, but that's a father and son. Steptoe and Son has just been a very, very big hit in Portugal as forget it's something Filio, Camilio et Filio, which is Camilio and Son, and that's been an enormous hit in Portugal. And at the moment, we're trying to set up the Hancock series shows in France.
And the Portuguese are trying to set up the same production in Spain.
In Spain, yeah, Steptoe and Son, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're trying in France with an actor called well-known French stage actor, whose name escapes me for the moment. But his name is Francis Perrin, and I'm not seeing him. Well, I was out in Paris last week with a view to seeing him, and he finished 3 days before I got there. That was so I didn't get around to seeing him. He was in a play there, but they reckon he's going to be delayed for about 7 or 8 months. But seems to be going ahead. I mean, they've had the scripts translated, and he wants to do it, and all very keen, and so hopefully it will get underway next year sometime.
There was a German actor who did
he did 6 or 7.
Or 7 Hancocks.
A fellow called Jorg Tomalo.
Many years ago.
Yeah, in the early 60s. There was a Dutchman called Joop Daderen who did about 6 of them. He did the Blutgiveren.
Is there anybody you would like to write for that you haven't managed to write for at the moment, past or present?
I would love to work with Will Hay. I think, yeah. We worked with Jimmy James once. I mean, after being crass enough to think that he wasn't very funny when we first saw him, and then within about 2 or 3 years realising that he was one of the funniest men alive. And then we had the great pleasure of working with him just the once, and he was a charming fellow. And every time I see him now, one thinks, God, how wrong could we have been? He's so funny, and it would have been lovely to work with him. But Will Hay, we'd love to have worked with Will Hay. Don't know whether it would have worked. You can't tell. He makes me laugh even now. I've got all his, not all of them. I've got all the. I haven't got the school ones, but I've got all the other films that he did on video at home. Where Mr. Porter. Where's That Fire? Ask a Policeman, Old Bones of the River, all that. I've got all those.
You can almost start a Will Hay Appreciation Society.
Indeed, there is one, I believe. Yeah, so there's appreciation societies of virtually everybody, I think.
Do you think that's very English?
Seems to be. Seems to be. In fact, it seems to be peculiar to England. I mean, that's probably not true.
There's always been fan clubs. There have always been fan clubs in America.
But usually they've been organised by the studios. You see, the beauty about the Hancock Appreciation Society is it's been self-combustive. I mean, all the Clark Gable Society and all the rest, they're all organised by the studios, and they send out the fan. It's professionally organised.
Judy Garland's little song. Yeah, Dear Mr. Gable, I'm writing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But there was all studio stuff, whereas the beauty of these, as I say, it's the fans themselves that started up the organisations.
I know you can't sum Tony up in one word or probably a sentence, but could you?
Well, not in one. Not
one word or even.
I mean, he was great.
Bombastic.
No. Well, the character. Yeah. I talking about the character or
we'll
the
performer. The character first. I mean, you were very obviously close to the character.
Yeah, well, I mean, the character was basically a combination of all the failures that mankind is open to, all in one body. Whatever he did was the total failure, which is what makes it funny. There's no funny. There's no humour in success. It's got to be. He's got to fall. And also, there's the other beautiful thing about the Hancock character, and also the way he played it, was the fact that there was never any attempt at all at gaining sympathy. Never any attempt, oh, woe is me, poor little me, look, oh, she doesn't fancy me, oh dear, what am I going to do? None of that.
That's real. Yeah. That is one emotion that Tony loathed, was it? I mean, he probably didn't hate Norman Wisdom, but I mean, he hated the Norman Wisdom character.
And the chaplain sort of
he didn't like I disagreed with him about that.
Yeah, I mean, but, technically Chaplin was wonderful, but he didn't like the sentiment of Chaplin. Although Chaplin had a lot of cruelty in his...
I think Chaplin was absolutely superb, but there we are.
But Hancock was more of a sort of a W.C. Fields sort of, type man,
but he preferred that attitude.
Yeah,
he preferred that attitude.
What's the word? What's the name of a person who doesn't like the human race?
A misanthrope.
A misanthrope. That's the word I was looking for. A misanthrope. That's another good description of Tony. Misanthrope. Except, of course, that he wanted to be admired by everybody, whereas a real misanthrope doesn't give a toss about anybody.
What about him as a normal guy, just a normal bloke?
Sorry.
What was he like as
Well, we got on very well with him. I mean, we didn't live in his pocket, but when we got on well with him.
He was good company.
Yeah, very amusing and good social.
He couldn't stand anybody telling him jokes. Not that we ever did. Not that we ever did, but
and he never did.
And he never told a joke, I don't think, in his life. Well, certainly not to us.
Was he good at ad-libbing?
No.
Not really. No, I mean he wasn't
the world's best. No.
But I mean he did ad-lib sometimes and quite amusingly, but not. It was hit and miss. Sometimes it was just I think I'll do that again. I mean, but other times it would be very funny and ad-lib. It was it was off the cuff, off the top of his head, something, but it wouldn't be his strength. No.
How do you think he'd be best remembered?
I think I would always think of him as a wonderful comic actor. And I think if he'd lived and if he'd lived a normal lifespan and a normal working career, I think that's how he would have evolved. I think he would have become a very successful comedy actor in the sort of the French comedy tradition. He would have been more of an actor than a comedian. I mean, I think there were elements of that in the Punch and Judy Man, really, because although he'd started on the decline, there were elements of an acting ability that under normal circumstances I think he would have developed.
How would you like to be remembered? Because really, I mean,
alive.
Isn't it about time they went? It's 138 now. I was going to say, surely they can't go on forever.
See, to me, you're very much probably more Hancock than Hancock, really, because you developed that character.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you can't write that sort of show year in, year out, or that kind of show anyway, without really drawing on yourself. And that's really what it is. I mean, it was our memories, our words, our thoughts, said by someone else.
I mean, we used to talk to Tony about things, and that we used to put things in that would fit him, from his own experience. I mean, we knew that what he liked, what made him laugh, what made him, that we get the best out of him, sort of things that he would do well. But the same as when you get to know a performer, know an actor, it's the same with Steptoe and Son. We got to know what they did particularly well, and we used to slant the writing that way. I don't know whether, I mean, I always say, whether it makes sense or not, I don't know, but I'll say it again, is to sum it up, we wrote the character of Hancock in his own image. Now, whether that makes sense or sounds pompous or portentous, I don't know, but it seems to me to sum up what we were doing.
Moving on, right, sort of slap bang up to date, the Paul Merton show, the Hancock Society didn't really appreciate.
Well, one half of it.
One half.
The original Tony Hancock Society didn't approve, but the break-off schism did approve.
Did you think it was okay? I mean,
I thought it had its limitations, had its faults, but I mean, as a general exercise. Yeah, I mean, let me put it this way: supposing Tony Hancock had never existed,
if those shows were seen for the first time and the scripts were aired for the first time, would they have said Paul Merton can't cut the mustard on it?
It was a load of rubbish. The interesting thing was, of course, that the three most successful ones really were the ones that weren't Hancock's. But is that because we remember Hancock, or is it because, I don't know. I mean, from our point of view, Paul was a delight to work with. Very professional. He worked hard.
Also very deferential to Hancock.
To Hancock and to our material. I mean, he was a delight all the way through.
He also knew that he would be in for a lot of shtick from critics and the public for daring to do it.
Yeah,
but you see, once many years ago, we did a pilot. It was BBC's idea, I think, that we should resurrect the Hancock shows, and we did a pilot featuring Arthur Lowe playing Tony's part, and Jimmy Beck, who was the spiv in Dad's Army, played the Sid James part, and we did the economy drive, and Arthur was marvellous. It was marvellous. We all said, right, okay, that's it. And we were about to embark on a series when Jimmy Beck suddenly kills over and dies. And so we all thought, oh God, another one dying, and we all lost enthusiasm for it. But I am sure that Arthur Lowe would have made a big success in the reinterpretation of the Hancock half hours.
He was going to do all of it. The interesting thing there again, you see, is that was about 1975, I think it was 74, 5, in that era, which was only about 15 years after they'd been done by Hancock. And Paul, now we're talking 20 years later. We're talking about 35 years after Hancock did them.
So perhaps there's more mystique about it now than there was at that time. I suppose things can take on a mystery and a sacredness that after a certain amount of time.
And of course, Arthur Lowe, the character that Arthur Lowe was playing was similar to the Colonel Mannering in Dad's Army. It was more sort of Hancockian than Paul. He was a little pompous man, albeit one got the feeling a little bit better educated than the Hancock character was, and a little bit more military, but basically the attitudes are the same.
It worked
Ignorance,
perfectly.
Pomposity, and it certainly worked in the one we did. And he would have been wonderful in The Blood Donor. I mean, there's absolutely right up East Street, Arthur Lowe.
So this tape is lying around somewhere at the BBC?
Very likely, but nobody's ever dug it up. But it might be, it may well be around, if anybody knows where to look.
Are you going to do any more with Paul?
The idea is that, yes, at the moment they want another 7. ITV have commissioned it, and Galton have commissioned it, and now it's up to Ray and I and Paul to get together to decide A, whether we're going to do it, and B, which scripts we're going to use, and C, whether in fact there are going to be any Hancock scripts amongst them. So it may well be we decide not to do any Hancock scripts. I don't know. We yet to decide. We've got to discuss it. But certainly the television company want to commission 7 more to be done next year.
And aside from that, what else are you working on, or you decide to?
I've retired, but Ray is working away, and I shall leave it to him to tell you what he's doing.
I don't know if I want to really. I'm working on a series which has been commissioned by the BBC, and I'm working with John Antrobus, who we've worked with before, Alan and myself. Mm-hmm. We did a film,
Wrong Arm of the Law,
with Peter Sellers. Yeah. And John and I wrote a farce for the stage a few years ago, and we did 2 series for Yorkshire called Room at the Bottom, with Keith Barron and Jimmy
James Bolam.
Jimmy Boland.
Richard Wilson.
Yeah, Richard Wilson.
Yeah.
No, and that was a good series, but
Baker. I mean, was it George Baker?
George Baker was in one.
That
Yeah.
wonderful cast,
Yeah.
wasn't it? You think it's a tremendous cast.
It was a good series, and we were nominated for an Emmy and all that business. Anyway, yes. So this is a series about Alan, myself in the sanatorium, and there goes your phone again. I'm glad it's not mine. Yes, a series for the BBC called Get Well Soon, at the title at the moment, and it's about two young lads in a sanatorium in 1948.
I'm waiting to see what it turns out like before I decide whether to sue or not.
I suppose if he's good looking enough, the guy who plays your part, I suppose you'll be quite content.
With my blessing. I would say, what a wonderful example of total verisimilitude.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Wonderful.